LSU 31, Mississippi State 16. A game that started 13-0, a game that looked very bad early on. The way the State was able to break out that first touchdown, LSU's offense feeling pretty anemic at the beginning. It felt like State was threatening a few times in that first half to really bust this thing wide open, and that's where you have to credit the defense for holding the line. Quite literally, in fact, as they were incredible on these short yardage to go situations. Mississippi State consistently going for it on fourth down and consistently missing it. But like there were some really low points, right? I remember being down by a touchdown. Then they have the the defense gets the huge stop to give you the ball, like you're at Mississippi State's 30, right? You're so close to the end zone. What do? You fail the handoff, fumble, and give them the ball, right?
That by Mike Leach was a bad decision. You have an offense to that point that wasn't doing anything. Right? They weren't doing anything, and you were going to give them field position. Now they made you look like you were smart because they turned the ball over, but like you do that if you're Mike Leach, if you can't stop the other team's offense. You're like, hey, we can't stop them anyways, let's just go for it. But you had dominated LSU's offense to that point, so it's like, why are you going for it? That felt like at that time the only way LSU was going to have success.
Yeah, and so, but after the fumble, I do remember that's kind of when everybody's like kind of looking at each other, talking to each other, just like throwing your hands up in the air, like, oh my God, okay, I guess that's just who we are. We suck, but this team kept the faith. The defense kept them in it. They come up with a score right before half, and all of a sudden you could see the team gaining in confidence. This was the first time, Jake, it felt like in years. And by the way, we've not done a full film review yet. That will come tomorrow. The film is posted, and we'll dive into it today and tonight. But this was the first time, Jake, it felt like in a very long time where I could feel the defense getting stronger and more confident as the game went on, right? Like by the end of this game, the beginning, they felt maybe a little unsure of themselves, having success. By the end, they were clearly the bully. I said on Whiskey Wine Saturday night, I'm pretty sure, but it was like this was their kind of they were Debo in this game. It's been a long time before that. Give me that chain, and it was very confidence-inducing to see because I feel like probably my biggest takeaway from all of this is that you have a coaching staff that is learning this personnel. And learning this personnel quickly and learning how best to put this personnel in positions to succeed. So think about some of the changes made, right? You put Emory Jones at right tackle. You now have two true freshmen starting tackles, which is absurd in its own right, but it paid huge dividends this weekend. I got to find the Cody Worsham tweet, but pretty sure they both graded out really well, actually, according to PFF. If you want to look at Cody's Twitter, Jake, maybe you can see it. I like Cody's feed because on Sundays it's like live from Pyongyang. It's like state-run media, and it's all super awesome, positive little LSU nuggets that'll get you hyped for the future. But back to learning personnel. You have a true freshman starting right tackle, third lineup in 3 games. It looks like it was probably your best lineup thus far. You switch Greg Brooks and Jay Ward. That pays huge dividends for both players. Jay Ward able to be more physical, use more of a physicality in the game, and both of those players making multiple what you would describe as game-winning plays. You have Harold Perkins. You're like, look, this kid is such an athlete, and we like him at linebacker, but, like, how can we get him more involved? How can we maximize the best guys we're putting on the field? Said Harold Perkins rushed the passer. What does he do? He gives you 1.5 sacks. And really just a defensive game plan as a whole, showing one look pre-snap and then shifting to another as the ball is snapped. Again, that's my biggest takeaway from this game, Jake, is this is a staff that we put so much faith into going into the Florida State game. It looked like, they seemed disappointing in terms of their understanding of the players and how to best use them. But it seems like in just 2 weeks, that understanding has grown by leaps and bounds. And that's a very good sign moving forward in both the short and long term.
So I do have that stat that you were asking for. So between Will Campbell and Emory Jones, LSU's 2 true freshman tackles, they had 98 total pass block snaps against Mississippi State. They allowed 0 pressures and graded out number 1 and number 4 among SEC tackles in week 3.
Damn.
And that's not going against directional school U. That's going against Mississippi State, who, when you look at their defense, and we talked about it, now they had 3 sacks in the game, and Pickering and Wheat were the 2 guys we talked about. Wheat, 7 tackles, had a sack, had a TFL. Pickering had 5 tackles. He had a sack, he had a TFL, but it didn't come against the true freshman, right? So that shows you that they were trying to get some of their best players matched up on other players, and not your true freshman tackles.
Yeah, I think, which speaks, again, like Jake's talking about, those 2 are very talented. That's a hell of a thing to have 98 pass block snaps as true freshmen in an pressures. SEC game and not give up
not a sack. No pressures.
Yeah, that is certain, especially when you go back. Now, again, I stand by what I said. Mississippi State's D-line not as good as Florida State's, right? And there will be much better D-lines that you are going to face down the road, and so we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
See, but in my study, I'd put them right there with Florida State.
Okay. I mean,
I'm not saying they're better, but look, Wheat and Pickering are both Sunday football players. And you gave up 3 sacks. You never want to give up 3 sacks. I understand that. But what the freshman tackles did, that was highly impressive to me.
Yeah, it was look, again, what they did was awesome. I still think having freshman tackles at certain points is going to not always feel great, but it is your best path both short and long term, right? Because the long-term development on these guys, all of a sudden the ceiling seems so massive if they're already doing this at 18 years old. And in the short term, I think it looks like your best group, at least out of what we have seen thus far. So a fantastic job there. Cody Hester says, okay, but why does LSU have to learn their personnel but other teams don't? Doesn't UJ have 14 new starters and they're dominating? They took in no transfers. They have known those new starters for years. On top of the fact that the new starters are actually better than LSU's, because obviously, I mean, how they've recruited, right? You're talking about replacing NFL guys.
You're talking about, before you move up, you're talking about guys that you've known for 3 years in recruiting.
Exactly.
Like, so not just recruiting because they're on your team. You've watched them since they were in high school. You've been in their homes. You know them. You've learned what they can do. And then they get to Georgia, and you've developed them. And you mentioned that's why you don't take a player out of the portal, because you know your team. You feel like your team's going to be the number 1 team in the country. Now they're number 1 in both polls. We'll get to that later on. And if you're LSU, you have 16 guys that you're trying to learn. And yes, you've been here for months together. I understand this isn't a built-in excuse. This is just facts. You're trying to learn all 16
the Georgia comp
of
is
these
a bad
guys.
One. Like the Georgia comp, it's ridiculous to assume that LSU should know their roster and how their coaches and players interact to the same level that Georgia does, where there's been consistency on both the staff front and the player front. It's a bad comp.
And you got players from Notre Dame, from Kansas, from Virginia, from
UTSA,
Arizona State, from UTSA, from McNeese. I mean, you've got them from
FIU.
Yeah.
I mean,
East Tennessee State.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. So, of course, there's growth points in learning the personnel. The point is they seem to be learning quickly, and that could potentially pay huge dividends down the road. All right, look, if you got any questions about the game, put them in the chat. We'll answer the most interesting ones, and we'll continue to talk a little LSU, Mississippi State, and what it means next here on OTB. All right, some stuff to break down from this box score, Jake. I mean, you cannot say enough about what the LSU defense did. We mentioned Mississippi State leading the SEC in time of possession entering the year, right? They're going to have 40 minutes a game. Well, LSU wins the battle 27-32, controlling the ball. How did they do that? They forced the SEC's number 1 third down conversion team off of the field. Coming into this game, State was completing over 50% of their third downs. They go 3 of 14, 1 of 4 on fourth down. And Jake, you can expound here, because you were just mentioning during the commercial break, like that's hard against that. Those are great numbers against anybody. Much harder against Mike Leach in the air raid.
Yeah, when you look at what they had done coming into this game, what he's done in his career, and just how they beat you. They beat you because they get into third and short situations, third and medium, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and that's where they really thrive. So to get that team off the field and not allow them to have success on that down, I mean, the whole defense, and we'll get to it, but that might be the stat of the game. I think that's why you won, because of what you did on 3rd and 4th down and what you did as far as getting pressure on the quarterback and still having guys in coverage. That was the thing. if I would have gone into this game and I would have said LSU's going to have more sacks than Mississippi State.
Yeah, I would have never guessed.
Not one person would have believed us. I wouldn't have believed it. I would have known it was a lie coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, 100%.
But they did, and B.J. Ojulari was a dog. Now, Jay Ward was as well. It's funny, I put it out there that B.J. was the best player on the field because I still think he was. And I was like, well, Jay Ward would like to have a conversation. I'm like, no. Jay was fantastic as well. And Jay's been a really good player since he's been here.
Yep.
But when you get pressure, when you're only rushing 3 guys like BJ was getting, that's different. Like he was dominating his individual matchups, his double team matchups.
Yep.
And look, Jay did a lot of things in open space that allowed him to win the game as well. It was a combination of both. But what BJ was able to do, you just don't do against Mississippi State and Mike Leach.
Yeah, and look, and then I also think that Mekhi Wingo did an excellent job of interior pass rush, and Jacoby Gill and everybody else who's in that role to allow BJ to get home on the edges. I thought that really the scheme did a pretty fantastic job of allowing you to rush for a lot of times and not be punished for it, in that you confused Mississippi State in terms of what coverage you were in and what you were actually running. And the reason why I thought that was pretty impressive is because in my head, it was kind of like last year, right? Where it was always almost more of a passive thing, right? Rush 3, make everybody play underneath you, and just tackle well, right? And eventually Mississippi State will make a mistake. Well, again, Mississippi State hadn't really been shooting themselves in the foot as much this year, meaning that Matt House would have taken a more proactive approach. And they were able to consistently, and Brian Kelly said this after the game, but they were able to consistently confuse Mississippi State with their pre-snap look versus what the actual coverage was post-snap. And so that allowed you at times to add a 4th member to the rush and not be punished for it in ways in the past where it looks like Will Rogers would always automatically make the right decision. You held this Mississippi State offense to 289 total yards. You held Will Rogers to right over 50% completion percentage and just 214 yards. A guy who was looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. So just an amazing performance from House, from the game plan, from the execution, from Ojulari, Ward, and it results in the big win because the defense had to hold the line while the offense figured out their side of the ball, and then eventually you bully him, you lean on him, and then you break through in the end.
Yeah, another point another position I want to point out on the defense is linebacker. You said it, and we've kind of been joking, but you're right. It's like, we need a play. We need somebody to step in. Where's Baskerville? Well, he came in and played extremely well. He had 8 tackles in the game. And then true freshman, Harold Perkins, he had a sack and a half. He had multiple quarterback hurries. He had 5 tackles on the game. And you're talking about the scheme that the defense had. They said, okay, Harold Perkins, you know how to rush the quarterback, and we're going to find a way to create space for you. And some of the A-gap stuff that they were doing with Harold Perkins, Mississippi State didn't really have an answer. And then when they tried, he was physical enough that he was big boying some offensive linemen, centers and guards, and he was pushing them back into the quarterback. I thought that was a really nice kind of change of pace.
Go back right there. Look, that's really interesting right there. So this is a 4-man rush where they bring Perkins off the edge, move Ojulari to an interior pass rush position, which is, if you're a guard, you never want to see that guy line up on you when you have a single block as a 3-tech. It's just not something that you're used to handling. And you saw it's like you've seen Cam Jordan in the NFL a lot of time. The Saints have success here moving to the 3-tech. Ojulari doing the same.
Hey, Danny, go kind of where it's right there. Pause. All right, so what T-Bob's talking about, look, you have both your linebackers. They're over here in this bunch formation. You've got your safety, Greg Brooks, who's basically playing linebacker, kind of Sage Ryan as well. You've got all of these defensive backs on the field, right? You've got 6 defensive backs, and it's a 3-down look, but then your 2 backers are athletic enough to be able to do whatever you need them to do. And then Greg Brooks is physical enough to be able to play in the middle like he's playing Mike linebacker. So when you have guys that have different skill sets, that's what's going to help you out. And the fact that you believe Harold Perkins can rush off the edge, which he did, and he created kind of what BJ was able to do there on the guard. And then you've got Baskerville out here. You feel good enough about his coverage skills that he can go out there in a bunch. And so when you have different guys with different skill sets, it's on you as a coordinator and a coaching staff to be able to utilize all of that.
Yeah, hit this, Danny. Yeah, and look, when Ojulari wins on the inside like that, there's just no chance. What's the quarterback supposed to do? Can't step up. Harold Perkins is screaming off the edge. Big sack. Oh, the Tigers. Let's talk a bit about Jayden Daniels. Jake, unless you have anything else you want to add on the defense right now.
No, I'm good. I mean, we're going to come back. We'll come back to the defense.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We can stay here, though. We don't have to move on to Daniels. I just what else needs to be pointed out defensively here, would you say?
I even think like the corner position, the safety position, the changes they made, like moving Jay Ward to nickel, and Brooks kind of was in a more, hey, you're going to be physical because that's what you do really, really well. The corners, we didn't notice them.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest compliment I can give you against the Mike Leach team. I mean, there were so many shots that Mississippi State tried to take, and the corner was just right there in the hip pocket of the receiver. And again, we didn't notice you, and that just kind of tells how the story of the game went. So for me, the changes they made, like Jay Ward going to nickel, remember he came to LSU as a corner. So he has the coverage ability to be able to do that, but he played so well at safety, you're thinking, well, there's no way they're going to move him from safety.
Yep.
But they realized, like, in this game, that was going to be the best position for him.
And then if we're just talking, this is technically a special teams play, but if we are talking about corners, the effort displayed by Jarek Bernard-Converse on what looked like a very long kick return at the time was just fantastic. And it's emblematic of exactly the type of effort that you want out of your team no matter the situation. And it speaks to the kind of buy-in that is currently going on this team. This is a win that can get this team a lot of confidence. Now, I don't care what that really means going forward because all I care about is enjoying each result as it comes. And we can get into more of that later. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and go to break. There's a little defensive breakdown. And when we get back, let's talk about Jayden Daniels, this offense, the good, the bad, where you can improve, what was the difference between the first and second half. We'll explore all this next here on Off the Bench. But let's talk about Jayden Daniels because in the end, Jayden Daniels puts together a pretty fantastic stat line. 22-37, 210 yards to the air and a touchdown, and he 16 carries, 93 yards and a touchdown on the ground, basically accounting for about 75% of your total yards, of your 416 total yards. And I feel like, Jake, it's kind of exactly what we said the other day, which is that he will play a style at times where he's going to pass up some throws, but there are still a lot of throws that he can and will make. Yeah. We can talk about the third and shorts and the fourth and short, probably especially there. But then at the end, passing up throws for his legs within the context of this team is your best path to winning. And you saw that because what Jayden Daniels displayed, like, I'm not looking for perfection, okay? I'm looking for enough. And not only did that, but he displayed toughness. He displayed leadership. For the second game in a row, he displayed ability when the game was on the line in the biggest moments to step up and make the play. The fourth down, probably critical in kind of proving that point. So, yeah, I thought Jayden Daniels, I think we're starting to get a further understanding of his style of play. And, again, it is your best path to winning this year. And he was fantastic on Saturday.
So it was the last drive and before the half, and he's leading them down the field, and there were some people I was sitting around like, why is he running? Why is he taking off? Why is he not throwing the football? The thing was he was picking up first downs with his legs, and did it look like he was even attempting to read the coverage? No, it's like, okay, one look, and then he was going. That's just what his game is right now, right? And that's where his strengths lie. Now, what's been, I think, a good sign for LSU, he's shown that he will read a coverage and throw the football down the field. It's come in the second half of the Florida State game. It came in the second half of this game as well. So he does have that in his bag. And I know that it doesn't look like it's looked in years past. I think you said that maybe Friday. It doesn't, but it's been effective. He's taking care of the football.
Yes.
Running and throwing. He's taking care of the football. He has been, in my opinion, like ever since the first half, and certainly there was a couple of drives in this first half, he's been a really efficient quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks when you look at the efficiency rate in the country, not just the SEC, in the country. So, yes, it does look different. Yes, it's not the way that you've seen it done. It's not Joe Burrow sitting back there throwing for 500 yards. But that's okay because he has a skill set, and it feels like, the offense is learning his skill set.
Yes.
And they're learning how to play call with his skill set, and the linemen are learning how to block with his skill set.
Well, and this is one of those funny situations, Jake, because this is one of the ultimate examples that in all of this stuff, there are no hard and fast rules. You always need to be willing to adjust your kind of own philosophy and thoughts based on what your players can do. And, Jake, within this team, we hate 7-man protection. We talk about it all the time, right? We hate 7-man protection. It cuts down options for the quarterback. Within this team, 7-man protections actually, when used correctly on rollouts, shorter routes, things like actually maybe can pay a bit of dividends. You saw this last game, and the reason being because, okay, if it's not there, Jayden Daniels can run.
Yeah.
If you have a quarterback and you hold all, if you have a stationary quarterback and you hold those extra receivers in, well, that's a huge problem because that's how that guy's going to protect himself. He's going to protect himself with his arm by dumping it off, by getting out to somebody else. Jayden Daniels can protect himself with his legs. So, yeah, if you keep those guys in a block and they block well, well, then all of a sudden, okay, it becomes kind of a de facto running play. And you saw them do, Brian Kelly talked about it after the game. You saw them do that a lot on a lot of these short yardage stuff. And to your point, Jake, in terms of recognizing coverage, because let's not sell Jayden Daniels short here. Look at the fourth down play to Malik Neighbors. They had a zone beater on one side of the field, and they had a man beater on the other. Jayden Daniels gets up to the line. He recognized that it's man. He has inherent trust with Malik Neighbors, which is also something as a quarterback you have to build up, where it's like, okay, I'm going to throw it to a spot, and I know my guy's going to be better than their guy. He's going to go up and get it. It's exactly what Jayden Daniels did. Pre-snap recognition, saw that it was man coverage, and then delivers about a 20, 30-yard throw on 4th and 3, like a gotta-have-it throw to keep that drive live. I think it was Malik Neighbors' 4th short yardage conversion on that drive. He had 3 third downs and then the 4th down as well. But that's what I'm saying. Those two plays, like those two ideas, him winning with his legs and then winning in that way with his arms, where his initial read was correct and he could deliver the ball. That's how Jayden Daniels is going to help you win this team. And so I'm not going to complain as much about Max Protect this year because now I'm kind of seeing or starting to understand that it's not like when you have a stationary quarterback back there, when you have a Jayden Daniels skill set, you can make it work more.
And he looks so comfortable in 2-minute situations and when they have to go fast as well. Now, it was good to see him when he had to slow it down, when they had to kind of churn some clock, he was able to do so. But, even going back to right before the half and going back to the first game, that's where he's comfortable. He is comfortable in that situation. And when you're in a 2-minute and you need it and it has to be fast kind of deal, when you're that athletic, that's going to help you because all hell kind of breaks loose in 2-minute situations. A lot of the rules that you learn in normal offense and defense, they kind of go out the window in 2 minutes. It's a different beast, and that's really where he's been thriving. So it was good to see him right before the half, but it was also good, like you're mentioning, he knew he had man coverage. He knew his receiver was better than their DB.
Yeah.
He put the ball in a place where he allowed his playmaker to go make a play. If that's going to be your strength, if that position, which it's continued to shine, if that's going to be your strength, then allow those playmakers to go make plays because they are going to win their matchups 9 out of 10 times.
How do we feel about how do you interpret the tempo, Jake? That's been a question I've been getting a lot. Why didn't LSU go tempo every single drive? How do you kind of interpret how they were able to use tempo?
I don't know if you can go tempo every single drive, but I'd like to see more. I don't think there's any question about that. Just kind of going back to what I just said, that is a situation where I think your quarterback thrives, but also your offensive line, it makes things easier for them. And T, I know you can speak on that as well because when the defense can't set up, when they can't bring pressure because they're just trying to get lined up, and when you've got defensive linemen with their hands on their hips when they're bending over because, look, as an offensive lineman, you're just kick-stepping. They are rushing like hell to try to get to the quarterback. So they're tired. You're not. You have that advantage. And also these receivers, right, they feel like in that situation that they've been getting the ball maybe a little bit more. So you're going to have a receiver group that's locked in during that 2-minute situation as well. You've got a back in Josh Williams that is a great pass protector as well. So you've got all the makings of being a hurry-up team if you want to. Now, I'd love to see them, and we've talked about this for years. Hey, maybe the second drive, hey, let's go tempo. Let's go hurry up.
Yeah.
Now, this game, because Mississippi State controls the ball, that's probably why you didn't see it. Because if you go tempo, just remember,
It's
if you go tempo
sword,
and you go 3 and out,
yeah.
You've taken about 35 seconds off the clock, and your defense is right back on the field against this type of team who had led the SEC in time of possession. You have to be careful with that. So that's probably why you didn't see it as much in this game, but you will see it more, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, again, and that's the kind of give and take. Like Champ even says right here, it says couldn't go tempo early because the defense was on the field a ton because offense couldn't get rolling. Yeah, and you don't want to. You want to at least let the guys get their heart rate down before you send them back out there. But Jake's right. I think it's something that you continue to work in more and more, even though I don't think you go like full Tennessee and you just live there 24/7. But Jake's also right about from an O-line perspective, it really helps. Just simply because the defensive line can't sub, and it's more tiring to rush the passer, so they get tired, and you get to they become much easier to block. It's great. One thing that I loved seeing here, Jake, before we go to break, I love seeing Brian Kelly get animated, right? In the Florida State game. I mean, look, I don't like the over the top performative yelling, right? That used to be the way of coaches. I think that looks pretty ridiculous nowadays. I don't know if if society's changed or if it's just me getting older and being like, wait, you're supposed to be the adult in the room and like that's how you're acting. But that's not to say that I don't like coaches getting on players, right? I just think there's a way to do it. Like the Will Muschamp, I'm about to burst a blood vessel, like throw into like that looks a little ridiculous to me. But Kelly, when he's like out there like, come on, and like telling, Jane, like square your shoulders, like set your shoulders, like, come on, what are we doing here? Or like, when he's yelling like Charles, like hit Turner to get the operation figured out. Like, okay, that was good to see. I enjoy that. I like stoic Brian Kelly, but I also like seeing him specifically call out players and things that he's seen and trying to get it right. And it looked like it kind of worked in both cases. So I enjoyed that in terms of a growth point from Florida State to Mississippi State. All right, when we get back here, let's go ahead and close out hour number 1 of OTB. Jake, what do you think about the run game?
There were some things to like about it. It wasn't a finished product, but look, you end up with Armani Goodwin, 9 carries, 75 yards, and please do not tell me 47 came on one run because number 22 is the one who ran those 47 yards.
Well, not just that, but it's kind of that's the whole point, right? Is that the runs, they stuck with it.
Yeah.
And the runs that were going for 1 and 2 in the first half, if you notice in that third and the fourth, they started, we were down one. I was watching my boy Cliff. I was like, ooh, Cliff, these are starting to hit a little bit.
Yeah.
They were going for 3, 4, 5, 6 consistently.
He finished the game with it.
That's what I'm saying. And so you see that slow build, and that's like when, as an O-lineman, my ears start to perk up a little bit. Like it sends a little blood in the water. Sure enough, you're starting to hit, and then you hit the big home run. So, like, you can't take out the 48-yarder because the 48-yarder is created by all the body blows over the first 3 quarters by the other, 37 carries that you committed to. That's my takeaway. 38 carries, stats are nothing to write home about, but the 38 number is interesting because it shows you that, and I know some of that's Jayden Daniels, but it does show you that, I mean, even John Emery, though, got 11 carries, right? Armani Goodwin with 9. It shows you that they were committed, and then Josh Williams was one very impressive one to get in the end zone there. But it shows you they remained committed to an area in which they weren't having success early on.
Yeah, and a couple of those Emery runs, and I can't wait to go back and watch the tape just off the TV copy. They're close. They were close for him.
He tripped up one time.
He tripped up once for sure, and there was a second time that he had at least 7, 8 more yards. And again, this guy hadn't played football in a year and a half, so there's no surprise there. I thought that integrating him into the game plan worked out really well for LSU because it got him comfortable. Love to see what he's going to do. I would, like this week coming up against New Mexico, like, hey, John, drink some My High because you're going to get some carries. We're getting you back integrated into this offense. But when you look at the run blocking grades, not great, but not as bad as they've been. 61% is what you graded out run blocking.
Yeah,
now,
it feels right.
On the other side of things, pass blocking, you were 88%.
That's surprising.
So that is a huge jump. Remember when we came, even last week, like the grades weren't what they are this week. And so pass blocking, you excelled. Okay, now the run blocking has to come. It's improved. It's still not where it needs to be or where it's going to be. And also, you're still trying to figure out, I think, your running back rotation. Like Noah Cain didn't have a carry in this game. He got a couple of plays in. He didn't get a carry in this game. He got a bulk of the carries against Florida State. So Emery comes back. He's the guy who gets 11 carries. Now, Daniels had 16. Goodwin had 9. Josh Williams, as you mentioned, he had the 1. They're trying to figure out that rotation. Okay, once they figure that out, that's going to help the offensive line because I think we talked about on this show last week, like when you have different backs, like you're conscious of who's in there at running back because they have different styles. You block it a little bit different. So once they figure that out, it's going to help everyone.
Yeah, I mean, look, Josh Williams is clearly your third down back, right? In terms of how you're going to split the carries. Otherwise, it looks like just from this game, they really like Emery and Goodwin, maybe over Kane in that regard. But we'll see where it goes. The point is, you did enough to kind of batter them down. Now, it should be noted, football's a complimentary game. The only way you have that luxury is if your defense is holding the line, right? So even the defensive play, to me, bleeds into the running game there because it allowed them to stay committed to it and then eventually start hitting in that fourth quarter. One of the guys clearing the way was Emory Jones. But that was not probably the tightest Emory Jones play. Like any block that Emory Jones had, great. It was awesome. I don't know if anything was as crazy as watching this man cover a punt. Danny, do you have the clip? Okay, so look at this. This is a true freshman, like 6'6", 320. Mississippi State's returner's already broken like 3 or 4 tackles. That is a legitimate open field tackle from Emory Jones right here. I've never seen anything like it. Try to put a move on him. Look at the athleticism, tripping him up.
And I was sitting in the south end zone. I don't know how much farther he would have gone. I mean, there wasn't a purple and gold jersey combination, whatever you want to call it, anywhere in sight, really.
At least 20 more yards, dude. I mean, look, here's the deal with that, though. He should probably get off a punt.
I think he did.
He's going to be the starting tackle.
So
right?
after he made that tackle, they put West in there.
They were like, wait, hold up. We still got him in there. No.